Okay, welcome everybody to a new feature on 18 Stripes we're going to try out called the 18 Stripes Film Room Live. We know that you guys have all loved the film room articles. We're trying to move this into the digital age a bit and give you some media also. So we're going to break down some film live. We have Tyler Hack. You might recognize him from covering our recruiting articles. He also played Elf and understands the game. I'm purely an armchair quarterback. So for the film breakdown, I'm going to hand it to Tyler, and then I'll ask some questions that maybe the casual observer might ask. And here we go. Enjoy, everyone. Tyler, you have the floor.
So we're looking at a few plays from the Georgia game. I know it was a pretty rough game for most of us, but the defense actually performed pretty well. We're going to take a look at some of the defensive back play in that game, plus Drew Tranquil a little bit. I know he's not technically a DB, but he's more of a hybrid player, so we're going to fit him in there somehow. So we saw some good plays, saw some bad plays. We're going to start with the bad, just get that out of the way, kind of rip off the Band-Aid, and then we're going to move into the good stuff to end on those warm, fuzzy feelings. So let me get that started. First, we're going to look at Nick Chubb's opening carry, the one that went for 30 yards. I'm sure we all remember that one. And now what I'm going to be looking at is Jalen Elliott on this play. All right, so what I'm going to be looking at is Jalen Elliott, number 21, right in the middle of your screen, back around the first down stick. I'm sure most of you, when you first saw this, just assumed that he took a terrible angle to the ball. But when I saw it, that's not what I was thinking. He didn't really help himself that much. He could have seen the field better to see what was going on around him, but there's a lot more going on, and most of it wasn't good. So obviously we've got 95, Myron Tagovailoa Amosa. I hope I said that right. He absolutely gets run right back into Jalen Elliott, completely closing his lane to make a play on the ball. And then you get number 9, Dalen Hayes. Also, he's supposed to set that edge, but what really ends up happening is he gets pushed all the way almost out to the sidelines on this one, leaving a huge gaping hole where obviously Nick Chubb can just run right through that all day. We really need to see better play as a unit on this one. Elliott didn't help himself much. Ideally, probably the only thing he could have done to make a play on that football, a bit more patience to let the play develop a bit more. But I'm sure that's not what Elko's been trying to drill into these guys' heads. I'm sure they're told to be aggressive, to go after the football. And right here, he tried to do that, and it ended up burning him a little bit.
All right. So with Hayes, obviously, was supposed to set the edge on the play. What do you think Tagovailoa also should have been doing? Was he supposed to drive upfield? Was he supposed to hold his man, or what was that? What did that look like?
Ideally, he would have at least held the line instead of getting pushed back into the backfield. Not into the backfield, but into where the linebackers would have started. But when he got pushed in, it kind of just made a seal and just a wall of just bodies. Georgia offensive linemen, Notre Dame defensive linemen, linebackers. It just a big old clump, kept everyone in place. It's just a wall that made it really hard for Jalen Elliott to get through. He could have went around it. That's why I'm saying he might have been a bit more patient to let things develop. Because if he'd been a bit more patient, he would not have gotten sucked into that. But yeah, it's just really tough because
I'm curious. I had read. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, when you watch that, you see it looks like there's a pretty big opening for him to just run through and take down Chubb, but then it just closes down so fast.
Yeah. So I wonder now, because I had read online after the game, and I didn't go back and look at the play-by-play myself, but that Studstill more or less took over for Elliott in this game, and that part is objective, there's no doubt, right?
Yeah.
But somebody said that it was after this play that stud still got in. So I don't know that that's true, but I think we've seen a number of times as casual observers where, and especially safeties because they're the last line, right? Where they're left cleaning up after people and it looks like their fault and it really isn't, So maybe this is one of those cases where, he just got hung out to dry by some bad stuff in front of him.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. He didn't help himself as much as he probably should have. But again, I mean, I'm sure he was just taught all week to be aggressive, to go downfield,
Go downhill.
to make. But ideally, in this situation, he would have been a little bit more patient to let the play develop. But again, I mean, it's kind of between a rock and a hard place, because when he's too patient on this, he might be patient enough on this one to make the play, but then another he's too patient and he gives up a big play, misses a tackle, something like that.
Right.
So it's kind of tough to find that sweet spot on every play of being patient but also being aggressive. On this one, I think he just might have been a bit too aggressive, which is really no fault of his own. I don't think. I think it's just something that he was taught all week. And it's hard to balance being patient and being aggressive at the same time.
Yeah, it's a tough line to walk for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
Bring us down a little more. Go to the next one.
All right. Okay. So this play right here, this is going to be a deep ball that Fromm threw to the Georgia receiver down near the bottom of the screen. We got Nick Watkins out here in coverage. This one ended up being a long completion, but let's watch this one first. First view, it looks pretty bad. I actually think on this one that Watkins had decent coverage. The issue was that he just didn't make a play on the ball. As you can see right here, he's got his eyes on the quarterback, so he's definitely playing zone coverage. He's right on the receiver. He just got out jumped there. I think that's been a recurring theme in the past where our DBs have been in decent position and just let something like that happen to them. So I think they definitely right there being aggressive would be more aggressive would be great in that scenario. He kind of just waited until the last second. More aggressive, went up there, jumped over him, and got the football. Ideally, what he could have done there is maybe press the receiver down to the sideline more. That would have closed the window for Fromm to throw to. With him being a young quarterback, he might not have the accuracy to really pinpoint it in the perfect spot. But that move that the receiver made, cutting to the inside near the beginning of that route, really kept Watson on it. It wasn't much, but it made him test the possibility that he was going to make an inside move. And so I think it kind of threw him off a bit, and it made it so he wasn't able to press that receiver to the sideline and really close down that window for the quarterback to throw the ball to.
Game of inches, man.
Oh yeah, because that move, it does not look like much at all, but you could see his reaction when it happened, and how he kind of hesitated there for a second. Let's get it. This is a good view right here, and it doesn't look like much at all, but it was enough to give him a little bit more wiggle room on the outside, and it was enough for Fromm to put it in a decent spot for him to go up and get it. If he's pressing him more to the sideline, that throw probably would have been picked off if it was in that same spot. And I think it would have been in the same spot. I don't think Fromm is deadly accurate enough at this stage to where he's able to pinpoint exactly where he wants to place it.
Right.
It probably just would have been the exact same throw, and Watkins would have been in a great spot to pick it off. I mean, he was in a decent spot to pick it off to begin with. As you can see, it's
really good coverage. It's right on the guy. It's just
It's just looks like the receiver just wants it more. He did not get good elevation on that. He didn't high point the football. The receiver did, and unfortunately, that ends up being a pretty big play for Georgia.
Yep. It's funny. I remember when we talk about inches, right?
Yeah.
game that a play that Lars broke down for one of the film room posts at our former home from I think the 2011 Michigan game.
Oh yeah.
Which didn't happen. No, sorry, 2013. Because it was Kavari Russell in his second season.
Oh.
And it was down in the red zone, and Russell was lined up over the slot man. Before the snap, he knew it was going to be a touchdown. And I said, how is that? How could you possibly know? And he said, they're in man coverage, and Russell was lined up centered over the receiver. Right, so the center of his body over the center of the receiver's body.
Mm-hmm.
Center of his body over the receiver's inside shoulder. So he was giving up that inside, and he said as soon as he saw that, and I said, that's great. That's like 9 inches difference, you know?
Oh, yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah, I know exactly how that goes. If you're not, especially if you're in the red zone and you're playing man coverage.
Yeah.
If you're not even set up in the right spot, no matter how athletic you are, no matter how well you recover, there's a good chance that you're going to get burned.
Yeah, it's crazy.
DB play in particular, it's so technical. There's a lot that you need to get right to make a good play, and it's not just a matter of shadowing some guy and going up and getting the football. There's a lot that goes on before the snap, right directly after the snap. Your first steps are pretty crucial, really. He was in a pretty good spot. Again, just that move right there.
Yep.
Gave just enough room to get the football on the outside. And you know he's not too far off the sideline. If he gets tackled, he lands just about where the hash marks are. So he's got a good few feet there. If he's going to make that catch, you want him to make a sideline catch with barely 1 foot in bounds, something like that. But he had plenty of room to fall back on his back and still be completely in bounds. So ideally, that wouldn't be the case. But unfortunately, right here it was, and it made it easier for the wide receiver to make a play, I think.
Yep. Okay. So now that we're depressed.
Oh yeah. Yep. I think now we can look at some of the good right here. This one right here was definitely one of my favorite plays of the game. I love it when defensive backs are physical in the run game and can make tackles behind the line of scrimmage. That is probably, if there's one play in football from the defensive side, if it's not a turnover or a defensive touchdown, I want to see a defensive back make a tackle in the backfield, especially on a running back as dynamic and with such a size advantage as the running back from Georgia. I believe it was Michelle. It might have been Chubb, but I believe it was Michelle on this play.
I think it was, yeah.
Such a dynamic player. And he gets tackled by little scrawny Nick Coleman. So let's take a look at this play. And you see Coleman at the top of the free safety position, and he's already inching up. He knows in this formation that he's going to be playing on the run. Just excellent vision here. Going up, kind of shadowing Niles Morgan on this play. I think we were talking about this earlier, and you mentioned that they kind of went the same way, made the same move. Niles Morgan did a great job of just eating up that block, and then it was a one-on-one, just tackle in space for Nick Coleman. He was patient enough to let things develop. He didn't just barrel through the line. It's really easy to get sucked into stuff that's going up in the line, all those bodies. You feel like the play's always going to go there. But he was great at letting the play develop, letting Morgan eat up that block, and just what a sound tackle he made. Just hitting right near the waist, wrapping him up at the legs. That's probably the best tackle we've seen from a defensive back in I don't know how long, honestly.
Yeah, the redemption story for Nick Coleman, I think, has to be one of the biggest storylines so far this year.
Yeah, definitely.
Just like last year, he looks, not to pick on him, but he looked like he didn't belong on a football field, you know.
Yeah, it was tough.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, wow. Look at this. And he's doing great. You mentioned this earlier, his rugby style tackling, not worrying about making the big hit, but worrying about getting the guy down.
Right.
Really, that defensive backs.
Yep.
You know, they're not the big thunder sticks that linebackers are. what they just need to do, they're either the last line of defense a lot of the time,
Right.
or if they don't make a tackle, it'll be a big gain.
Right.
To get the player down.
Right.
Technique. He's got his head down, going towards the football. If his head was maybe a couple inches to the left, I think that probably would have been a fumble. But regardless, it's still a turnover on down. So
yeah.
Just a great job.
You know, it's the short tackling, right, for safeties and corners especially. Better that, you know, okay, maybe it's a 30-yard run that you turn into a 32-yard run with a tackle, but better that than turning it into a 70-yard run. Right?
Oh, exactly. And his reaction on this play right here made it so that he didn't need to lay down the thunder to stop him on fourth down right here, because look at where they're at. They're 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. He gave
himself a margin of error. Yeah,
exactly. Even if the running back barrels through him a bit, the odds of him getting another 4 yards, as long as Coleman wraps up, is pretty slim. But just a great play. He even held his ground there. It's a 2-yard loss when they needed 2 yards. They lost 2. Exactly what you want to see.
Great play
from defensive backs, knowing the scenario, knowing what formation they were in, their wildcat formation on that play. As you can see, all running backs in the backfield. So the chances of seeing a throw on that play are ridiculously low, unless it's going to be something short that probably wouldn't burn us that much. So being able to understand the formation, to creep up before that play even starts, and then just diagnose where he's going with the football and making a great tackle. There's not much more that you could ask from Nick Coleman on this play right here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just noticing as we watch this here that it was Mecole Hardman for Georgia.
Oh, Hardman. Okay. Yeah. Well,
as dynamic in space as Michelle is, Hardman might actually be better.
Yeah, exactly.
So he undressed Kalen Hayes in the fourth quarter on a pretty similar situation. So, very impressive play. So,
okay, let's move it on to the last play that we've got here. And this one, I mentioned that we'd put Drue Tranquill in here. This was his interception right before halftime. We know that he's in the rover spot, so he's technically more of a linebacker, but he's kind of like a hybrid defensive back. And this play, just beautiful zone coverage on his part, and also just reacting to what Fromm as a young quarterback, knowing what he would probably do, just going to his first read, trying to play it safe. Trying to put just points on the board before halftime. I'm sure the game plan for Georgia's drive right here, they've got 40 seconds left. They've got to go another 56 yards. I'm sure they weren't thinking touchdown, definitely touchdown. They were thinking just put points on the board before halftime. So let's take a look at this play first. And notice where Tranquill is before the snap. He's in the middle, almost over the center. Fromm probably has no idea where he's going to go. And he breaks right before the snap. He breaks to that tight end, I believe, that's in the slot, towards that man to cover him. And there's going to be a better view of the coverage in a second. You see him, he's almost over the center. He's in between the center and the guard right now. Fromm probably thinks he's going to play over the middle of the field, but he cuts right towards that tight end, undercuts the route. Perfect zone coverage. He's got his eyes on the quarterback the whole time. He knows that Fromm's first read is likely going to be that tight end. Quarterback to see that and to work around it, to go towards his next read, it's difficult for young quarterbacks to do that. Right where Drue Tranquill undercut the receiver. Receiver had no chance here. It was all Tranquill the entire time.
I didn't even really notice until you mentioned his pre-snap location right here, but he covered a ton of ground to get out there too.
Oh yeah, definitely. That was great misdirection before the snap. Fromm had no idea that he was going to head out there and cover the flat. He probably thought that based on the formation that we were in, he probably assumed that the defensive back Coleman right there, number 24, who's 10 yards off the ball, he probably thought that he was going to be on the tight end. He threw it there. Probably eyes weren't even on Drew Tranquil, just because of that misdirection before the snap occurred.
Yeah.
I probably thought an easy out would have been an easy 8 to 10 yards. It ended up being a turnover.
Yeah, great. And it's obviously the first two plays are kind of rough, but the next couple of plays, I think we're really more what we've seen from the defense so far through 3 games, and so great to see such a turnaround from last year where guys really very often didn't look like they had any idea where they were even supposed to be. Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so really, really great to see that they've taken some strides, and I know 2 of the 3 offensive we've faced, possibly all 3, are not killers, but even so, just the eye test will tell you that this is a different group than last year. So it's a lot of fun to break down some of the good stuff here.
Definitely. Yeah, I know last year we could have faced the most abysmal offense in the country. And half the time we were just not even close to a position to make a play like this or to make a tackle like Nick Coleman made on that last play that we discussed. So I mean, it's just great to see guys playing against maybe not being the best offensive unit, but against players who are arguably even more athletic than our guys. Which normally we're playing against teams, unless it's USC or maybe Stanford, we're playing against teams where we have the athletic advantage and we're still not in position.
Right.
Georgia, their recruiting classes over the past 5 years or so have really even edged Notre Dame. I know we've been pretty solid, but Georgia's edged us pretty much every year.
Right.
And so these are guys that they're playing against in this game that were athletic players, maybe not the best unit, but they were guys that could do a lot of damage to you. And we did a pretty great job of shutting them down for the most part, aside from a few big plays that happened here or there. Which with a unit that has had so many problems in the past, with our defense having so many problems in the past, it's kind of expected that they'll give up some big plays. Kind of had those growing pains of the first few games. This is only the second game of Mike Elko's tenure at Notre Dame, so we figured there would be some growing pains, but this was a pretty dominant performance for the most part by the Notre Dame.
Yeah, definitely, and it fits in with what we've seen so far this season from them. We've seen that there have been times where they soften a little bit, for a drive or two, but the situational defense has been fantastic, and overall performance, especially late in the game. I think they really clamped down late in the game. And just big progress, and gives us some good cause for optimism for how they're going to perform the rest of the season.
Yeah, definitely.
It's going to make us sad, but
for the year that for Mike Elko's first year that we might just be an average defense. It's looking now like, I mean, I know the offenses we faced so far haven't been spectacular, but it's looking now that there's a pretty good chance we might be above average actually, which is such a then from what we've had to deal with over the past 4 or 5 years, I
would say, it's a small sample and you don't want to get too excited, but for me, I think, average has moved from reasonable expectation to a reasonable floor for this year. So, really encouraging.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Okay. So, we hope everybody enjoyed first episode here of 18 Stripes Film Room Live, and we look forward to bringing you more stuff like this. And a big thanks to Tyler for getting into the analysis here and helping us understand what we were saying.
Yeah, no problem. It's good to be here. That sounds like such a cliche. I'm not really sure. The first time I've done anything like this, so I'm outside of my comfort zone, but I hope you guys enjoyed what we were talking about. Maybe get a little bit more insight to some of these plays that happened this past Georgia game. I know we just had the Boston College game, but this Georgia game was a big one. And even though it didn't go in our favor, we saw a lot of things to be proud about, particularly with the defense. Offense maybe is a whole different story, but But defense, it's better than I expected. I'm sure a lot of people could say the same. So even though it was a rough, heart-wrenching loss, losing by 1 point to a team that kind of sort of took over our stadium a bit, kind of heartbreaking in that way, but I surprisingly wasn't that heartbroken because I kind of saw a lot of hope for the future in what the defense might be able to bring to the table.
Definitely. And hopefully we'll have some more fun defensive breakdowns for the rest of the year.
Yeah, definitely. Look forward to it.
All right. Thanks, Dowd. Take it easy, man.
Yep, no
See
problem.
everybody.